Hey, it's Alan Berg. Before we get into this episode, I'm starting something called Ask Me Anything. That's right. You submit your questions and they could become an entire episode or something that I answer at the end of an episode. To submit your questions, look for the red button at podcast.alanberg.com. That's right, podcast.alanberg.com. Click on the red button, submit your question, and maybe you'll hear it here on the podcast. Thanks. What does the Not 2025 Real Wedding Study tell us about what's going on in the market? Listen to this episode and find out. Welcome to another episode of the Wedding Business Solutions Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Berg. I'm a speaker, sales trainer, consultant, author, and I help businesses like yours sell more, profit more, and have a little more fun doing it. Enjoy this episode. Hey, it's Alan Berg. Welcome back to another episode of the Wedding Business Solutions Podcast. I am so happy to have my friend Tom Chelednik on from Wedding Pro to talk about the Real Wedding Study. Tom, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here, Alan. You
You and I go
trained
back.
me like 18 years ago, buddy.
That's right. I trained
19
you
years
18 years
ago.
ago. And look at you now. Look at you now. There
Yeah.
you go. And you're doing what I was doing. You're speaking for Wedding Pro and doing things like that. So I asked you to come on because the Real Wedding Study comes out, and I always read that thing front to back. But not everybody gets a look at it, and not everybody understands maybe what to do with that information. So we have some highlights. We want to talk about that, and I also just want you to tell what are you hearing in the market? People ask me this all the time. What are you hearing in the market? What's going on? Stuff like that. So actually, why don't we start there? What are you hearing from people now? We're recording this at the end of April. What are you hearing from folks?
Yeah, I'm probably similar to what you're hearing. I'm hearing a lot of what I was hearing last year too. I think 2024 was the year of perfect storms for weddings. And in 2024, when the real last year's World Wedding Study came out, the economy has reared its ugly head for the first time of taking, couples being concerned about the economy. The other thing in 2024, we had this great wedding reset where we were down to 2 million weddings. So there were less leads, less booking. So people felt that was coming off of that 2.1, 2.3 million, all the pent up demand. And then the big thing is last year, we're starting to see the generational shift happen. And last year in Gen Z, last year there were 34% of weddings took place were Gen Z. So anytime you and I have been around long enough that anytime we know there's a generational shift, everything changes. Your business changes. It doesn't change overnight, but it slowly changes as more of that generation becomes relevant in the market in that space. And I did not see enough change last year where people were struggling. They weren't changing things, their
Right.
lead follow-ups and how to connect with that generation. And this year, it's pretty much the same thing in 2025. And the Real Wedding Study, the economy came up again. Everybody should be used to at this point of 2 million weddings because we reset that. But the generational shift is even more in play here, where 50% of weddings taking place this year will be Gen Z. So if you could freeze your business today and move 2 years in the future and look back at your business and you're still in business and you're profitable, you probably have had some significant change in your products, your pricing, your packages, your marketing, your website look, your blogging, how you're responding, the tools you're using to respond. That's the big what I'm hearing in the market. The people that are struggling the most historically, when I dig into it, they haven't made enough changes to connect with this Gen Z. Still plenty of weddings.
Right. So we're on this border of Gen Y and Gen Z, but what I like to tell people is it's not a hard line. It's not like all of a sudden people change. This has been happening, like you said, this has been coming along because the older Gen Zs and the younger Gen Ys are the same people. They didn't, it's not on your birth certificate. You're a Gen Z or a Gen Y. You have to be like this. COVID kind of accelerated, I think, a lot of this, that, the not doing so much in person, doing much more digitally and stuff like that. It definitely accelerated that. And we're also, like you said, the perfect storm last year. We had a presidential election year. We had the COVID hangover. We had the engagement gap. And now the economy again. I was just reading an article the other day about the tariffs and the dresses, because a lot of the dresses are coming from China. And legally, you can't change someone's price after you've done a contract with them. right? They would have to agree to that. But you have a contract that says you're going to deliver this product at this price. That's going to be a problem for a lot of people because, what day is it? What time of the day? Is the tariff on? Is the tariff off? We
Right.
don't even know what to do. I just saw something that the port of Seattle has no Chinese ships in it, right?
Wow.
And what that means is there's going to be a trickle down, which says those goods that did not come in, right? What are we going to do now? We're either going to source them somewhere else at a higher price, or we're not going to have them. So you're going to have shortages, you have price increases, and stuff like that. So, all right. So let's get into the study itself. Um, I love the fact that Gen Z actually is more into the idea of having the wedding and having the celebration and doing stuff like that. That was a really good thing to see. Um, and that 77% believed that weddings remain as important as ever. And 96% say they're grateful for the ability to celebrate in person. This is, I guess, coming off of COVID in
Right.
person there. So that was something I saw that really stood out for me. That it was kind of a shift, Gen Y going away from some of the traditional wedding stuff, and Gen Z kind of coming back to that. And what I read in there, it said is if you're younger and getting married, it's more likely that you might be getting help from your parents, which means you might be getting more influence from your parents to do things like that. So that was an interesting twist there. What was a highlight for
But
you? Go ahead.
well, on that point, right, where they're getting more investment from their parents, I believe the percentage is 63% of parents are paying significant amount of Gen Z, so that who's ever paying is going to influence what the
Right.
wedding is. But Gen Z, which my takeaway was from that part of the study, was what's old is new again. More of them are doing bouquet tosses than millennials,
Mhm.
38% versus 23%, right? Gen Z historically doesn't want a cake. They're more into the dessert bar, but because the parents are influencing the decisions, they're still doing a cake for a cake cutting, you know.
So having
So
both, they're going to have a cake, but not maybe not as big of a cake, right? And then they're going to have the dessert bar, which you're actually eating.
right. And Gen
Yeah.
Z is favoring the grand exits more,
Right.
43% versus 20% of millennials.
Yeah.
And of course, the unplugged ceremonies, Gen Z, 62%, 54. So I think it's interesting. And it's not only interesting, every piece of information that you can find or wedding pros can find about Gen Z, you all need to read that and ingest that and not
Yeah.
just keep it in your mind. If we know bouquet tosses are back again to a certain extent, we should probably put some photos or videos or talk about a little bit about bouquet tosses and
Yeah.
dessert bars and cake cuttings and things like that to connect with them. The whole study is around we do this so that we share that information with wedding pros to help them connect with the generations that are coming up. What's
Right.
important.
And the short videos, which is really important for Gen Z because they've grown up in the Instagram, TikTok generation, having short videos of the bouquets toss, having short videos of people cutting cake. You don't need to have, 15-minute video of that. You need to have a 30-second video of that. It's like, oh, wow, cool. And then another one and another one. Personalization. Gosh, I mean, I can't remember a study, right? And I left the knot in 2011. I can't remember a study even back then that didn't say personalization was important. I mean, it's just such a huge thing. And I think what it comes to is the impression of personalization. So you can have packages as long as people feel like they can customize them. Because a lot of
Mhm.
people think that, oh, if I have packages, it's too limiting. No, a price fix menu at a restaurant is a package, but you still have choices within that. And you know what? Some of those choices cost more. Like you want the steak, it costs more than, the regular price of the dinner, but that's your choice to do that. And I think that came up. That was really important. Personal
Yeah.
touches. Um,
There's one, I was talking to a wedding pro yesterday, last week who was struggling a little bit and he had packages. And of course, all his packages were customizable,
right.
but he didn't say that on his website. He
Mhm.
didn't say that on his lead follow up. And last week when I talked to him and he made that switch and he put, at the top of his website, package customizable, and then in his follow ups, price ranges from this to this, couples usually spend this, and it changed his business. It really
Right.
changed. Just, people assume they're customized. They don't, you got to put it out there. So to your
Right, right.
point,
It's what they see first, and what you don't know is the people that never reach out because they didn't see what they wanted.
right?
Um, Another thing that stood out here, which I loved, was 72% of couples believe the guest experience should come first. Thank you, thank you. Right, like you could elope and you're married. right? And there's elopement companies out there, and there's crazy great elopements now. It's just beautiful things you can do. And my son's wedding last year, there were only 10 of us for the ceremony, right? There were 30 of us the next day and 60 of us the next day, but there were only 10 of us for the ceremony, right? So you can have that, and you're married. They could have stopped there and they were done. But 72% of the couples believe the guest experience should come first. These people are spending time and money. They're buying gifts, they're buying clothes, their hotels and airfare or whatever to come and celebrate. Please make it about them. Make the reception about them. Ceremony's about you. I will give you that. It should be about you. Of course, make sure your guests can hear. Make sure they can hear your vows and stuff like that. But the experience, if I when I looked more into it, it was also some of the recommendations from Wedding Pro talking about the experience of the shopping. Like you said, does it say on the website there it's customizable? Does it say on the storefronts it's customizable? Are you getting back to people quickly? Are you meeting them where they are with the technology? I'm sure you hear the same thing that I do. People getting ghosted. And then we look in and you see that they're asking for a phone call right away, which would be easier for the business, but not easier for the customer. I had somebody recently, I did a consult, second time with him. He's in Italy and he does destination weddings for Americans and for Brits and stuff like that. And he was getting 1 out of 10 people that he responded. Like he'd get 10 inquiries, 1 out of 10 would respond to his message. So we changed what he was saying, shortened it up, got rid of the attachment stuff. 3 days later, he messaged me and said, I've gotten 9 new inquiries and 6 of them have already responded to me. From 1 out of 10 to 6 out of 9, the inquiry quality didn't change. It was him that changed. This is exactly the point that you started with, is if you're still doing what you were doing a few years ago and it's not working, it's not going to work 2 years from now.
What's working 8 months ago might not be working. You got
Right.
to change it up.
Yeah.
You're talking about guest experience, and hopefully everybody knows what a lead magnet is, but just in case, magnet is a little box or a banner on your website, and they click it to get information. And to get that information, what do? They have to give you their name and their email address, and it becomes a lead. So I am seeing success because personalization and guest experience is so important. Wedding Pros getting a lot more leads from their website by having a lead magnet that talks about guest experience. Just a quick Canva doc and all the cool things that professional has done or has seen, et cetera. It connects and builds that trust with them. So guest experience is not just, in photos and videos and things like that, but like be a resource to these people because we know it's important to be able to connect with them. I don't know if you're seeing
Right.
that or not, like a
Yeah.
lead. That.
Right. Well, again, lead magnet is great for trying to get contact information, right? So in exchange for this document, you're giving me your contact information. So we've all seen that, the pop-ups and stuff like that. But talking about the experience, those are people who have read the Story Brand, right? The book, The Story Brand, talking about stories. When I go out, and I was just at a venue the other day when we were doing a mock tour, I said, are we talking about the guest experience? Because you think about it, you, the couple, will be in those get ready rooms, right? So if it's a bride and a groom, brides get ready room, grooms get ready room, two grooms, two brides, whatever, right? You'll be getting ready. What are your guests doing? So if you think about yourself as a guest, when you show up at a wedding, like let's say you're a lucky one, you didn't hit traffic and you get there early, right? What are you doing? You're kind of standing around, right? So would a photo booth be a great idea over there, something for them to do? Would a paparazzi photographer, as they come up looking the best they're going to look all night, taking a picture that you give them at the end of the night, handing them a glass of Prosecco or champagne or something or a mocktail just to set the experience. And then they start thinking, oh, yeah, I've been to weddings. It's kind of been like, what's happening until boom, then everything's happening. No, let's create an experience from the beginning. When my cousin got married, we had to come up an escalator to get to the level with the banquet rooms. And there was a string trio sitting there playing beautiful classical music. Oh, what a beautiful start to the day, right? So experiences, but experience of the buying as well, reducing the
Mhm.
friction. Um, Something that I was reading in here was talking about, and I know I did a webinar about this for Wedding Pro, completing your storefront more, but there's also some AI tools that are helping you with that, like helping you choose photos and stuff, right? I did not know that. That's a good thing. Can you tell me more about that? Do you know more about
Yeah,
that?
yeah, sure, absolutely. We have a photo smart selector
Okay.
that the AI will look at all of your photos that you uploaded, and based on your category, your market, et cetera, it will suggest your main image of the photo that is more likely
Mm,
to get looked at. You
nice.
can bypass it if you want to,
Right.
but it's working, right? It's working well. So give it a try. Some of the
Yeah.
other AI tools that we have too is, we take all your 5-star reviews and we use AI to do a summary of all your reviews.
Yeah.
Like, it's something, especially where people have 600, 700 reviews. Nobody's reading 600 or 700 reviews. That's just the way it is. But there's good information in those.
Right.
So to
Right.
summarize it, and our couples are loving that, loving that tool for sure.
Right. And I remember years ago, because I was there when we started with reviews way, 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 way back, right?
I was
And
there with you.
right. And I remember one of the challenges as time went on is how does a couple differentiate from this company with 55-star reviews and this one with 55-star reviews? And it came down to we understood at the time it was what they said. It wasn't that it was 5 stars, it was what they said, but AI didn't exist, right? We didn't have the ability to do that. We know that couples read on average 5 to 7 reviews per vendor, except photographers and venues at 7 to 9. So if you have 600 reviews and they're going to scan the first 7 or 9, they're only scratching the surface. And that I love that. A lot of people didn't realize, or maybe don't know, even listening to this, that there is that AI summary, which Google is doing stuff like that now. Amazon is doing stuff like that now as well, giving you that summary. So it reads all of those. And those of you listening to the podcast, if you didn't hear the one I did about AI, talking about what I've been doing for you, is exactly this: taking your reviews, putting them into AI, and then asking it questions about you to get the language for your storefront, for your website, for your emails, and things like that. Um,
Or I think I've heard this from you, and I've said it too. Taking your competitors' reviews
that's right.
in AI and putting your and ask AI to what the differences of,
Right.
the
Right.
competitor. Fantastic tools.
Right.
What's the
Not,
world in which we live in now, right?
yeah.
It's crazy, but I'm
Right.
excited for it.
And couples are using AI as well, right? They're using it for their personal web page. They're using it for thank you notes and stuff like that. Um, so, it is here. I also heard something that a lot of the younger people now are not using Google for searches. They're using ChatGPT, or they're using Grok, or they're using
Perplexity.
Claude or Perplexity. And I have to say, I do the same thing. I do the same thing. I'll go to Perplexity for more data-driven stuff, analytical stuff. Um, I did one the other day because I have my grandson and we're putting away money for his college, and I said, okay, at an average return of 8%, for the next 10 years, how much is the money that he's got now worth? And I'm like, gosh, will he even be able to buy a book then? Because who knows what college will cost. But it was such an analytical thing. I said I could go look up the formula and do all that. No, I just asked it the question and it can do that. And I've done spreadsheet stuff. I use ChatGPT for more reasoning type stuff, and I'll brainstorm with it. And I think, if couples are trying to write their web page, they would use that or Claude as opposed to Perplexity, which is more analytical for stuff. But
Yeah,
it does show that they're using it. So the photo selector, the summaries over there. Um,
right. Well,
about
the study, Alan, the study from this year, the one that we're talking about now, originally had only about 10% of couples using AI, and they were more using it for vow writing, thank you, speech writing. So we updated the study a little bit, and now we're already at 20% now using it for that, plus starting to planning tools. So obviously, AI is playing a big play in wedding planning and getting ideas. Even with our couples, right? We have a couple facing tool that's a style quiz on the knot, allowing them, and I use this, it's pretty amazing, allowing you to select the type of photos that you love, to get the best recommendation, the style of the vendors. So I like this, I like this, I like this, and then it feeds that style of the vendors in and recommends those vendors.
yeah.
So I think it's cool. It's a an interesting time to say the least.
Right.
You
Well,
know.
but that analysis stuff, because I was looking here talking about their theme and their vibe and their aesthetics and stuff like that, and they're using buzzwords like fun and romantic. Fun, which is a shift from romantic last year. Okay, so we can have fun, but we can still be romantic. But their themes, I love this. They're talking about elegance and refinement, even though they want fun. They're talking about elegance, like quotes, old money or quiet luxury, right?
Yep.
I guess what you're seeing what they see in the old movies and stuff like that.
Right, back
Uh,
to that like Great Gatsby thing that was like, I don't know, 10 years,
w-
12 years ago. You were
right.
getting back to that.
Well,
Oh, they'll take one.
the
Yeah, the
colors were
colors.
white, gold, and ivory and champagne. There's your Gatsby, right? That's the Gilded Age, right?
Mhm.
That was very cool. Um, We know, I mean, 64% of couples are using wedding planning websites or apps like the Knot and Wedding Wire to streamline the process, which is an increase, actually. So if you think about all of the people, obviously the people using Wedding Pro are using Wedding Pro, but the couples in general, and it's 75% still view wedding planning websites as irreplaceable resources. A lot of people will say, well, but they have Google, they can Google anything. I said, right, but it's going to send them to 28 different places. And that's what, the Not when it started in Wedding Wire, when it started, the whole idea was to bring it all together, just bring it into
Right.
one place. I started with Wedding Pages and we were a print planning book because it was the same thing. Yeah, you could have found out a timeline here and checklist there, but we put it all together in a book because we were in the analog age. In the digital age, this is where they're going to go and find it. So, I mean, and again, the audience is huge there. So, what else stood out to you? What else stood out to you? Guys, I got a couple of points here.
Yeah. I mean, things as simple as colors. On a national average, light green and light blues are the first and second colors being used in weddings. So that's important to know because you should have some photos. You should be talking about those colors. Each market's a little bit different. Maybe gold is or ivory or champagne is a little higher, but overall, light blue and light green are certainly those
Mhm.
colors. One thing that stood out to me too is 83% already had a wedding date set prior to their engagement.
I
And,
was going to call that one out too. 83%
and,
had the date set.
and 70% of them took at least one wedding related action before getting engaged. We know that they're taking a lot more. I mean, they're on Wedding Wire, they're searching what they want,
Right.
what their needs are. And I think that's such a big number. And I've said this last year, and I'm seeing some success with it from some of the pros that I talk to. If we know that they're taking all this action before they get engaged, why not have a little tab on your website that says before the ring? And in that is FAQs, tips and tricks, whatever. You're connecting with them where they are in their journey,
Well, the
right?
proposals, that was the other thing that stood out there was the fact that so many of them are planning. One in four are of people proposing are now hiring photographers or other vendors, videographers and other maybe
Plan
music and stuff like that, right?
planners, venues,
Right.
florists, musicians, you know. But yet, I see, and you probably see this too, this is a revenue stream for a business, a
Yeah.
category. So how long would it take for a planner to put an engagement package together, or a venue, or
Right.
a florist? Please, we know that it's worked. We know that people are doing it. It's just going to continue to increase because what happens is they want to out plan or out make a bigger production of their proposal than their friends. So
Right.
they're going to reach out for help.
And they are engaged an average of 15 months and using an average of 14 vendors, right? But looking at this again, if you don't optimize your website for proposal and things like that, they're not going to find you when they do a search, right? It's just like anything else. And then of the 14 vendors, the number one, 91% are having a dress, 90% a venue, 87% a photographer, 84% a caterer, 84% groom's attire, right?
The good
And
news, they're wearing clothes and they're feeding their clients, their
right,
couple.
right.
Yes.
And we know they're going to have music. We know that they're going to, there's going to be flowers and decor and stuff like that. Like you said, this is different all over. Just like the average cost of a wedding is different all over. And I get people asking me all the time, if I was to go into a new market, which is the best market? I said that you can't answer that. A bigger market with more people is going to have more competition, but there's more people, therefore there's more opportunity. And the good news is people are still getting married. 2 million people a year, at least couples, not people. 2 million couples are getting married in this country, and that's the opportunity there. And you just need to get your piece. Nobody's trying to get them all. We're not talking you and I right now to a national company that's trying to get every wedding out there. Nobody's doing that. But what do you say? What does it say? Wedding Pros says 2.4 million couples are signing up on the sites every year with 7,000 new users per day. 7,000 new per
It's
day.
crazy.
That is
It's
crazy.
funny. I just got off a global marketing call and we went over statistics with our couple, and it's just amazing. We're still getting 21 million unique visits per month on our site, and our app is being used on average of 4,000 downloads per day. I mean, it's a very vibrant business to say the least. The wedding business. I always say, what business to get in? The wedding business. It's $100 billion a year business in the USA. But you
Right.
had made mention to the national average of weddings and the difference of cost of weddings, and this just happened Monday to me because the statistic out there, which is controversial, I want to get it out there, is the average wedding cost is $33,000 from this study. Now
Mhm.
that is from somebody that's spending 500 in their backyard and somebody spending 250 on everything else.
Right.
So it's controversial to the fact, but like most people will say that's not enough. I live in South Florida, right?
Right.
But there's markets where I had on Monday saying nobody spends that much money in my market to get
Right.
married, right?
Right.
Like it's to the extent. And so I went into this budget tool thing that budget tool that the couples use to that we just launched recently. And I put you pick a pictures, like I like this, I like this, I like this. These are the type of vendors. Where do I live? And it outputted, okay, your wedding's going to be $43,000.
Mhm.
That is right on. That is right on. It'd be tough to get married even at 33. Probably could,
Right.
in Port
Well,
St. Lucie, but
the point is that you could, right? Because you can
you
elope and you
could.
can do all those things. My son, it was over 3 days. Now, they're in the Bay Area in California. I think
Whew.
all in, they spent probably average for the Bay Area, but we just did it on 3 days with 10 people, 30 people, 60 people at one, two, three different venues, right? All these different things. It's not that they were looking to save money. They were just looking to do something very non-traditional because they've been to all the traditional ones. And
And guest experience, right? Like, boy,
oh yeah, I
you
mean,
talk about they're the exact
oh
of
yeah.
this study.
Yeah, I mean, we
You
got
know,
on the cable car and we're taking pictures. We went on a dinner cruise around under the Golden Gate when the sun was going down. There was a party bus taking people over to the venue in Oakland, right? Live music, a guy making taco stuff. It was great. It was just not a traditional, what we would call a traditional wedding there. Let's just hit a couple of more things over here. The second word besides personalization that I see all the time is transparency. And this is another controversial one that you and I run into all the time. Transparency in pricing. We know that everybody here listening, when they are a customer, are looking for prices. We wouldn't expect any different of couples. If you've never shopped for something before, you don't have what's called framing. You don't know what things cost. So you look to something like the study that says 33,000 is the average, or 18,000 in what was it, Utah or Alabama? Where was it?
yeah.
Utah? I think it was Utah. It was 18,000 was the average.
Utah and Iowa is
Utah and
19,000.
Iowa, right? And again, Utah has a lot of dry weddings, and alcohol is a big cost on weddings there, right? But transparency, at least giving people an idea of price, will help you get better inquiries that you're not getting as many people that can't afford you. Because let's face it, you put a price range out there, it doesn't stop somebody from reaching out who can't afford you. It's an aspirational thing as well, but it could reduce that. And I tell people all the time, fewer but better leads is better for you, right? Because you can follow up more, you have more time to follow up. I've had this with clients where they put a price range on their website, the inquiries come down, but the sales go up because the people reaching out have an idea now. Like you and I and everybody listening, you've gone to a website looking for a price, there wasn't one, and we leave and we go someplace else,
Yep.
right? And you can't see it. My friend David Averin, who wrote a book, Why Customers Leave and How to Win Them Back, he said every day this is happening and you can't see it. Like if it was a store, you could see people looking in the window and walking by, right? But you can't see this on your website. So transparency, photos of real work. Thank you. I love seeing this on there. 64% of couples also want to see high quality visuals that showcase a vendor's style and capabilities. Show real people, real work that you do, people having a great time. Reviews. I mean, we can't stress this enough. Recent reviews, responding to your reviews. Besides that summary that's there, that's great. You have to have recent reviews. And if people don't care what you did 3 years ago, they care what you did 3 weeks ago.
And use those reviews in other marketing and advertising. Just don't let them
Yeah.
sit on Google or they're not in anywhere. Grab those, use
Right.
those, tell the world.
But please respond to them because it shows that you're connected. I am a very prolific reviewer of hotels and restaurants because I travel so much. And I love when TripAdvisor announces to me somebody's responded to your review. And especially when it's quick, because sometimes it's the same day, because that's how I respond. If I see I got a new Google review, I respond immediately to it. It doesn't take long, a couple of minutes, and it's done. And when I see it and I read it and go, okay, that was good. Like I was in Asheville, North Carolina, and Crystal, the waitress, well, she was fantastic. She was fun to talk to. She knew the menu. She understood my gluten sensitivity and stuff. It was great. I wanted to mention her in the review. I love that they mentioned her in their response as well. It wasn't the generic response. So please don't do a generic. And if you want to use AI to help you respond to your reviews, just make them different.
Yeah.
Make them different. You could ask it to read the review that they wrote and say what was the main point or highlight. Not that it should be hard, but I guess some people write a book, right? Some people write those
Right.
6 paragraph. We love them, but 6 paragraph review. What's the highlight that I should respond to on here? But it is really important. Recent reviews, responding to reviews. Obviously, the score matters and the number matters, but I would say recency and responding is, to me, are the two big ones over there. Anything that we missed here? Actually, how can people get the study?
Um, they can download the QR code that
Okay.
Alan's going to put up on his
Well,
site.
some people are listening, so we'll get a
Okay.
link and we'll put it into the show notes, so people
Good.
you can go get that, right?
Right. You can get it in the show notes. Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because more people are actually listening than watching, so we
Okay.
won't put the QR, but we'll put that into the show notes. Might be able to put the QR in the show notes. That's interesting. We'll do that. We'll make it so you can
Okay.
get it there. All
Okay.
right. Is there a stat that we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about? The answer could be no, but I'm just curious.
Um, no, I mean, I just, we've been doing the real wedding study longer than Alan and I, well, 16 years. The real wedding study is 16 years, and it constantly evolves. And this year, there were over 17,000 couples. It's our job as, the Knot and Wedding Wire being the biggest players in the industry to take that information, slice it, dice it, and get it out not only on a national level, but also on a market level. So if you're more interested in your market level statistics, reach out to us, reach out to Wedding Pro Support or your local rep, et cetera, and we can dig that down even further for you.
Yeah, but I love if you missed what Tom said about the budgeting tool there. Couples can go in and find the average in their market, as opposed to this 33,000 across the country, which is kind of irrelevant because you're not getting married across the country, you're getting married in
Yeah.
a place. But I love that it'll give them their local average. So they say, okay, like here in New Jersey, the average is $57,000. Yeah, that sounds right. 33 doesn't feel right for a typical wedding here. But again, averages being what they are. I have a friend who's going to spend $250,000 on his daughter's wedding, and then there's other people who are going to spend 15,000, right? And yes, you can do it, right? If you're getting married, like I said, you can just get married. Like you
Yeah.
don't need to have a reception. But you know why people do it, Tom? This is my feeling, because they don't think they're ever going to do it again. They want to
Mhm.
celebrate that, right? That's why we do it. My wife and I are coming up on 42 years. So,
Wow.
and that's because I told her we don't believe in divorce. We believe in murder. So there you
And
go.
it comes to a certain point where it's just too difficult to break up.
That's right. Well, the other thing is I told her, if you ever leave me, I'm coming with you. So there you go.
Yeah.
So Tom, thank you so much for joining me. We'll put the show
Thank
notes in
you.
there, and we'll put in if they want to contact you as well. How to connect with you on LinkedIn or
Absolutely.
Facebook or whatever.
Email, whatever.
Email. We'll have the show notes there with the link to the survey. If you have not seen it yet, you want to get that, read it through, see what's in there, just so you know what couples are talking about these days. And again, if you want to make yourself the one that they want to find out more about, complete your storefront, get those great photos there. The tool is there to help you complete the pricing information just to give them an idea. And please just respond. There's so many webinars Tom and I have done and other people about how to respond, how to get better response. Don't fight the system. If couples don't want to get on a phone call right away, don't fight them. Meet them where they are first and then ask for it. And there you go. So, Tom, I will see you soon on a webinar.
Very soon, hopefully. Thank you, Ellen, for having me. I appreciate you for
All right, my friend.
all your
Thanks.
brain cells have taught me what I know. So thank you.
Thanks, Tom. All right. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
Hi, it's Alan Berg. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Wedding Business Solutions podcast. If you have a suggestion for a future topic or guest, please go to podcast.alanberg.com and you can make your suggestion there. You can also do it at Ask Me Anything, which is a button on that page, or just email me at alan@weddingbusinesssolutions.com. And if you'd like to find out how I can help you with sales training, website review, consulting, or speaking for your group or organization, possibly at no cost to the organization, contact me directly, alan@weddingbusinesssolutions.com. Thanks again for tuning in.